Take a nice, slow, deep breath. Breathe in and out. Picture yourself near a still, beautiful mountain lake at dawn. A place of pristine and pure silence, where you can feel that great quiet mystery of the world. Breathe in the silence. Breathe that into every part of your being. Allow the stillness to massage every aspect of your body. You're beginning to feel completely relaxed. In front of you is a radiant sunrise. The sun is emanating rays of light and peace. Give yourself permission and fill yourself with this light. Let the rays of peace and serenity enter into you. Breathe them in completely. Fill yourself with this vibration of pure, peaceful energy. With each breath, you savor and take in even more light and peace. You hear the wind and the trees and the birds. Feel the wind on your skin. You sense that the earth removes your tension as it pours from your body into the ground. Empty all your stress in the muscles into the earth. Let the earth take everything you don't need in your body away. Take another deep breath and imagine that a silent, powerful energy that lives at the core of the earth is coming up in the form of golden threads and is connecting to your energetic field, to your body. Through these golden roots, you become infused with that still, quiet energy of the earth. Allow this energy to come up and through you. It is relaxing you, and the tension you have in your body is dissipating. Just release that stress and anxiety and anything you don't need. Just let it go. You are releasing it completely. Feel yourself more and more relaxed as you connect to the earth and your breath. In this state, you sense your light, your pure consciousness. You become aware of your light and your true identity as a spiritual being. You're in this body, in this world of form and matter. You are light, you're distinct from it. Pure light suspended within it. In this awareness of yourself as a soul, the spiritual being. You're beginning to feel totally free. Free from the future, free from the past, free from guilt or regrets. You're just absorbed in being, immersed in the experience of being. While you're breathing in and out and observing the beauty of your surroundings, you begin to feel more and more relaxed, more and more centered in a space of total tranquility. This is bringing you a sense of vitality, calmness, and well-being. In this pure space of silence, in this solitude, you feel restored and refreshed. Om Shanti, I am peace.
Greetings of peace, everyone. A very warm welcome and good day to all of you. I'm Dimple, honored to be your host for today. Welcome to yet another live talk by Meditation Cafe, which is now over about 2 years. And today we have brought for you a topic, Transforming My Life Through Spiritual Awakening, with Sister Sona Bahri from Abu Dhabi. Now, this is just the first episode, and today we're going to talk about the wake-up call. This is actually a 3-part episode. Episode 2 will be on 26th August, and episode 3 on 9th September. So before I begin, I would like to make a couple of announcements. We have for you translation available in Mandarin. So if you'd like to select the language below, you can change your option below in the translation section down, yeah? And also have some writing materials with you handy, like notebook, paper, or pen, because Sister Sona, I'm sure you have a lot to write down after listening to her talk. You may want to jot down some useful points and tips, and I'm sure you'll have lots of them. And if any questions do pop up along the way, please type it in the chat box below, and we will keep it for the Q&A session. You can keep your questions coming along the way, and at the end, we will have a question answer session where we will answer as many questions as we can. So to introduce our topic today, as I mentioned, episode 1, the wake-up call. It's a very interesting topic, isn't it? Does that ring a bell? Does it mean that we are asleep, or do we need a shake-up? There are moments in our life when we are lost, or perhaps know we need to do something or change something. We can't change others or this world. We only have to create a change in ourselves. Change the course of our life, how to transform and maintain our inner stability. So let's hear from our very experienced speaker, Miss Sona Bahri. Now, actually, Sona means gold, if you didn't know. Sister Sona, I think, yeah, okay. I think your camera, is it on?
Yes,
So,
yes, I'm
yes,
here, Dimple.
sister.
Hello.
Maybe I couldn't see, all right. Now, Sister Sona has tremendous experience in practicing and teaching meditation for the past 30 years. And the list of the countries I was reading, and I tried to summarize it, I said all around the world. I must say. So let's put it as European, Middle Eastern, Asian Pacific, African, Americas. I don't know where Sister Sona has not been in the past 30 years. So the list is endless. And currently she's stationed in Abu Dhabi since 2008, right? And, I was really surprised to know Sister Sona can speak 7 languages. And what many of you may not know, I was, very glad to know from Sister Sona personally that she started meditation when she was only 16 years old. Is that right? So I was wondering what I was doing when I was 16, and the list of her achievements is so long. And so we would like to hear from Sister Sona without wasting any more time. So over to you, Miss Sona.
Thank you so much, Dimple, from the other side of the world. And I think it's a good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone on the call, as it's so wonderful that we can get together on this one platform. So yes, it's time for Wake Up, isn't it? And I love this topic because I think what comes to your mind when you hear wake up call? For me, when I looked at the topic, I thought, oh, my alarm in the morning. It's a regular wake up, isn't it? And when we have this wake up call in our life, we all respond quite differently, don't we? These days, it might be the alarm clock. In the olden days, I still remember hearing the cock crowing outside. It hasn't happened. I haven't heard that sound for a long, long time, but I do remember in my childhood. And there was a time when I didn't need an alarm clock because my mother used to come and wake me up. That was a much sweeter wake up because often she'd bring me a nice cup of tea or coffee. And so it's a very welcoming wake up, not like these days where I kind of hear this noise from my phone. So wake up calls come in many different shapes and sizes. And I think we all know how our wake up call works, don't we? Whether on the physical level, and of course, today we'll be talking about a spiritual wake up. So wake up means an invitation for change. If you look at the physical wake up, what happens? Yes, you're right, Dimple, we were sleeping. And it's because we were sleeping that the call came to wake up. If I was already awake, I wouldn't need a wake up call. And so what happens, when I decide to answer that wake up call is invariably I'm being invited to upgrade my consciousness in a way. I'm being invited to change consciousness or change my awareness from being asleep to being awake. Because when I'm asleep, I'm not really aware of what's going on in my life. When I'm asleep, I am definitely thinking, because many of us have dreams, don't we? So I am thinking, I have some kind of awareness because in that dream, I'm seeing things and experiencing things, but I'm not conscious and I'm not consciously making decisions. And so when the alarm goes off, it's actually asking me, well, do you want to wake up? And if you do want to wake up, then what is it that you want to do next? So actually, a wake-up call is nothing but an opportunity to change my awareness, my consciousness, and perhaps I would say it's a chance to upgrade my consciousness in the sense that I'm coming into a state where I can be a lot more aware of the reality of my life from perhaps being in a dreamlike state. That's what waking up is all about. And when I'm more aware, more alert, scientists would say that my wavelength changes. Maybe the frequency in which I operate changes. So whereas before the frequency of operation might have been something lower, the frequency changes to something higher. And I perceive life differently. The same things that in a dreamlike state looked a bit strange start to look a lot more normal, and I am aware of the impact that they're having on my life, rather than just kind of going with the flow. And in a dream, you kind of go from one scene to another. You're not really in control. Whereas when I'm awake, I'm actively seeing scenes in front of me, and I'm a lot more aware of my responses. So it's the same spiritually, isn't it? Yeah, is this better for those who couldn't quite see? Is that making any difference? Some people couldn't quite see my eyes. I don't know if this is any better at all.
Yes, it does look brighter.
Yeah, is this a little bit better? I'm just moving back a bit. Hopefully this is okay. So yeah, there is a wake-up call that happens in our lives on a regular basis, actually, just as every morning we get a wake-up call. In the same way, spiritually, we are called to create change quite regularly. But I think what happens for a lot of us is that the spiritual change that is required is not often immediate. Think about what you do when you hear your alarm clock every morning. I'm not sure what you're like, but there could be different responses, So there's one response that says, well, I ignore it. There you are, the alarm's going off, and you just roll over in bed and you bury your head under the pillow and you just pretend that the alarm's not going. And I guess after some time, the alarm will stop and you fall back to sleep. You did hear the alarm, but you chose to resist it. So resistance is one kind of response to any wake up, to any call. The second response could be that you hear the alarm and you know it's time to wake up. But what do? You reach over and you press the snooze button. And in a way, you kind of procrastinate the change. You say, well, I'm in a place where I want to stay for a bit longer. And so you kind of give yourself a bit more time to create change. So change is inevitable. We all know that. You can't stay in bed all day. But I think sometimes there may be reasons why we actually just roll over and don't want to create change, or we postpone the change, we procrastinate. One of the reasons why we don't want to create change is fear. I think it's one of the biggest reasons that we resist change. So the wake-up call comes, but I don't want to wake up because of fear. Because I'm scared of what might happen if I create a change in my life. So it's the same, I don't want to even get out of the bed. I don't want to even face the day. It's too hard. And just the thought that I have to create change is scary. And it's easier to turn the other way. I think insecurity, I'm insecure of what might happen. I may have had bad experiences when I get out of bed, face the day, maybe the day before has been a bad day. And so I prefer to actually just stay within the secure place that I am. It's similar when I press the snooze button, perhaps not so fearful though. It's just that my comfort zone is just more important to me than actually being able to create some change. And that comfort zone calls me back. I know that change is imminent. I know that I can't stay where I am. But I give myself some time to be able to just think about the change that's coming up and prepare myself. I guess the third response is I'm ready for change. I've had enough time in my comfort zone. And I've lived, a particular way in a particular direction. And I'm invoking change. I'm actually looking forward to a change in my life. And so there's some people who, when the wake-up call comes in life, they actually are happy to change direction immediately. And it's like, yeah, that's it. Jump out of bed. So jump into another awareness. And it's those sort of people who are looking forward to change. They're welcoming change. They need change in their life. They may not even know what's coming next. They might need to change country. They may need to change direction. They might need to change the place they live, the work they do, the relationships they have around them. But they're ready for change. And so the minute they hear the alarm clock, done. They respond. So you can see that there are a number of different options that we all have when the wake-up call comes. So when we talk about spiritual awakening, we always are talking about a change. And even though we say physically change is inevitable, actually through life, we are constantly changing and evolving on a spiritual level too. So I guess the biggest question is, how can I welcome that wake-up call spiritually? How can I go along with it with no resistance? And possibly with not too much procrastination, not too much putting it off. How can I open my arms to change, to awakening inside? So even though we have options, I think many of us are not aware when that call of change comes. In fact, we become aware more so of our resistance to change. We're aware of why we shouldn't change. In fact, sometimes we give excuses and reasons why we want things to stay the way they are. And I think sometimes we even allow ourselves to believe that we don't need to change. It can get quite dangerous because life is kind of pulling us and sucking us to move on. And I'm putting the brakes on, saying, no, I don't want to head in that direction. I just want to stay here. But time can't stay in one place. Our awareness cannot stagnate forever. Awareness has to move on. It's a part of life. It's just part of the journey. And if I continue to stay in the same awareness forever, I will honestly start to head downwards. And that's not the way we want to go. We want to create an upward awakening, an upward trend in our life. So what to do? What options do I have when that wake-up call comes? And what is it that I want to do really? How do I respond to that wake-up call spiritually? How do you handle your own wake-up calls when they come? And I think the only way to make sure that I wake up, and I wake up with a certain amount of awareness that is invoking that change, that is welcoming that change, is building trust, building faith in life's journey. Because spiritual awakening is what allows me to go on life's journey in an easy way. It allows me to move in parallel with life without resistance, without putting the brakes on and procrastinating, without turning backwards, rolling over and saying, no, no, don't come towards me. Building trust and faith in life's journey means I start to build trust and faith in my own response to life's journey. Because when you're on a highway, when you're actually moving ahead, you know that every scene will keep changing. But to enjoy the scenery around you is another question. When I was in Australia recently, I had to do a long 9 or 10-hour drive myself. And it's the first time in my life that I've done this incredible drive completely. I've done bits of the drive myself. I've done 2 or 3 hours myself, probably done up to 4.5 hours myself, but to drive 10 hours on my own, not knowing what might happen along the way, it was the first time for me. And I can't say that, I was totally comfortable. There was that little voice inside of me that said, are you sure you want to get on this journey yourself? I tried to find somebody to go with me. There wasn't anyone. I broke it up. So I made a halt in the middle. So that was easier. I sort of was able to break up the journey halfway. But ultimately, I knew somewhere in here that I had to face it myself. And I knew that if I took a little break in between, and if I broke it up into chunks, it would be easy for me to handle. And I could probably build up enough trust and faith to handle the chunks better than the whole journey. And because I live in the UAE, it's a smaller country, we don't drive those incredibly long lengths of time. And I guess one part of me has actually lost touch with longer driving, longer hours of driving. And I think this is what happens spiritually as well. We get into a comfort zone where I can handle a certain amount of change. So when the wake-up call comes, I go back into my memory track and I go, well, I've done this much change before, so I'm happy with that much again. But when it's time to create more change than that, it's almost like I have to expand myself, and that becomes difficult. So every time that wake-up call comes, there's a lot of commotion that gets created inside. And so I remember embarking on this journey, and I was so happy when I first managed the 4 hours, and that took me to my place where I could halt. And it was almost like, relax now, because I could step into a zone of comfort because I reached a person's house. And again, there was a sigh of relief, a little bit of a breather. And then somehow I had the courage, the trust, the faith that I could do the next 6 hours. So what had happened actually was that a little bit of change, and I handled that. Another little bit of change, I handled that. And then I'm able to build up that inner courage to handle more. Whereas if I had said, well, no, I'm not going to do this drive, I'm going to stay where I am, I honestly would have missed out on so many opportunities that I had over my past 2 months in Australia. So there's a saying, you take one step of courage, life takes 100 or 1,000 steps towards you to support that one step of courage. In spiritual awakening, it's exactly the same thing. You take one step of courage forward, and you get supported by so many other elements along life's journey. And I remember when I was on this long drive thinking, okay, I can handle the drive, I can handle the twists and turns. Please, please, may it not rain. I'm not ready to handle a rainy day. I'm not ready to handle the slipping and sliding that might happen on the road, So when I'm handling change, it's almost like we place some limitations on how much change I can handle. I was ready to handle the first day because I was driving in the daytime. When I made a plan for the second day, I decided to set out early. And I forgot that I was going from summer in Abu Dhabi, where the sun rises at, 5 o'clock in the morning or 5:15 in the morning. And I was going into winter in Australia, where the sun rises at 7:15. And that too, if there's clouds, it might be later. And so when I set out at 6 o'clock in the morning, it was dark. And I hadn't anticipated that. So awakening means I will be thrown out of my comfort zone. And no matter how much I plan, there will be things that come along the journey. There will be factors that I'll need to face that I hadn't thought of. So when you get out of your bed and you face the day, you have a plan of, what it is that's going to happen that day. But does everything go according to plan? No, it doesn't. It's impossible to be 100% planned. So in the same way, spiritual awakening, along with trust and faith in myself, needs courage. And it needs a fourth aspect, which is I need resilience. I need to have a little bit of extra strength stored inside that I can access when needed, because I've heard the wake-up call, I've decided to move ahead, and things may not go the way I planned. So what to do? Trust, faith, that it's time to hear the call, courage to make a change, to step up my awareness, to step into a zone that I am not 100% aware of. And then resilience, to manage anything that won't go according to my plan. And to be honest with you, driving in the dark, it took a little bit of getting used to, but I was okay. I got into a mode and, I managed it. And then the best thing was when the sun started to rise, it started to rain. So exactly what I didn't want started to happen. But because I had already gone through one challenge, it's like I had got used to the fact that there will be changes that I don't anticipate, and it's okay. It's the same with our life, isn't it? When you manage something that you were not aware of, you gain the courage, you expand your heart. You are aware that there's something more to you, much more to you, that can face change, that can manage change effectively, and that the change is actually bringing you into an awareness that is bigger than where you were. So change always means growth. Change always means progress. And not listening to a wake-up call in life means I stay stagnant, ultimately leading into decline. Because life cannot stay stagnant. It changes, inevitable. So I'm going to ask you to do a little exercise now. I'm going to ask you to think of a recent change that has happened in your life. It might be in the last day or two. It might have been in the last month or two. It might have been in the last year or two. But just think back of some change that you had to make. Can you think of that change? It may have been a change of location, a change in your role in life. It might have been a change in your relationships and the people around you, the people you generally deal with. You might have moved into a different group of people. What kind of change did you go through? Just take a moment and reflect. See all the parameters that were associated with the change. Because that change in situation and scenario was actually life's wake-up call to you. Life created that change because life wanted you to step up, to upgrade your awareness and your consciousness. And now I'm going to ask you what was your natural response? When the wake-up call came, did you roll over and bury your head under the pillow again? Because you didn't want to face that change. And it's totally normal to have that emotion come up where you resist change. I mean, I'll be really honest with you. When I had to board that flight coming to Abu Dhabi, coming back, I think I started a countdown 48 hours before. So 48 hours and I'll leave Australia and this lovely climate and the beautiful walks. And I'd got quite used to being, in a certain pattern, a certain mode. In Australia, I have a very wide circle of friends and family who kind of hold me. And it's almost like a comfort zone, really. So 48 hours before I started to count down, jumping on that flight to come back. And there was resistance. So I'm telling you honestly what was going on within me. Life was creating change, and it was a wake-up call because coming to Abu Dhabi means I have to go into a completely different mode. It's a mode of being a leader, a creative person, taking up challenges on my own. So in some ways I could feel there was a 10-15% of me that was looking the other way saying, oh no, it's easy here. So it's perfectly normal if you feel resistance to change. But then there was a part of me that said, well, you know what, I've learned so much in the last couple of months. It's time to bring that, to the fore. It's time for me to have courage and faith and face the change that's coming. And so there's about a 50% of me that put the snooze button on and said, well, I've got these 48 hours, let me enjoy them. And I was kind of mentally, emotionally preparing for the wake-up call. And it was good that I did this countdown because it gave me time to face the shift that was coming. And then there was probably a good 30% of me also that was looking forward to a change. And that was saying, oh, good, I'll be meeting up with all my friends and, the people that I associate with in Abu Dhabi. And I look forward to sharing with them what I've learned. And I look forward to putting into practice some of the things that the newness that's been created in me. So I was going through a little bit of all the responses to the wake-up call. And I wonder if you can just reflect within yourself, what did you do in the last change that occurred in your life? What percentage of it did you resist? What percentage did you need to sort of put on a snooze, perhaps, where you're preparing, but you're procrastinating, you're in between, you're kind of enjoying the comfort zone, but you know that it's time to expand out of it. And what percentage of you was going, yay, I want the change to come, I'm ready. I'm ready to face whatever the wake-up call brings. Because I have this courage and resilience inside me that's waiting to express itself. And give yourself a percentage of the three. And now I'd like you to just ask yourself the next time there's change. The next time life suddenly, creates an alarm bell and goes, okay, wake up, here you are today, now it's time to upgrade yet again. How could you shift the resistance? How could you shift a little bit more of that procrastination into the third category, which is opening my arms to change, welcoming the shift, knowing deeply, having the trust and the faith that this moment of shift and change is good for me. All it is doing is it's upgrading me to another level. And I need to just move with change because that's what's best for me. Can you create some new thought patterns? Can you create new feelings inside you? Can you create more faith and trust in yourself? Can you perhaps look back on your life and see how good life has been to you, even though there have been twists and turns and it's not been that easy, but how every moment has created a new awareness, a new learning, new growth? Can that actually help you to look forward to change the next time it comes around? How can you prepare yourself in advance so that knowing that there's going to be a change doesn't come as a shock, like that alarm bell that just takes you by surprise? Because it's so important to be ready for the next wake-up call. The wake-up calls from life will come regularly, and that's what life is all about, isn't it? So I'm wondering whether if it's time perhaps to give you a chance to think of any questions or any comments that come and write them in the chat box so that I can actually help to respond to your wake-up calls and new ways of handling them, ways of being able to go with the flow of life, dealing with any forms of resistance that come in. And what is real spiritual awakening all about? May it not be that shock to the system, and may it be a gentle transition from one state of being to another, where I am moving easily into more alertness, more awareness, higher consciousness. So, Dimple, are we aware of any questions that might be useful for me to answer?
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
I think so far I don't see. Yeah, there's a question now. So what happens if I'm resisting a downward spin?
What happens if I'm resisting
a depression or something?
So I think we have an old habit perhaps of a downward spin. I think all of us do. Is there anybody who doesn't have a moment of, going downwards? Is there anyone who's never felt that you have a habit that pulls you into a place of negativity? I think we all do. So because it's an old habit, it's lodged somewhere deep in my consciousness, and it can come up again and again. I think one thing is to resist the downward spin, not to look at it because it's too scary. The other thing is to say, I wonder why I'm even being dragged into that direction. And if I can tell you very honestly, when I was, facing the shift from Australia to come back to Abu Dhabi, there was a part of me that resisted coming back, resisted coming back to the heat, coming back to a certain mode that I had to kind of express, which was a different leadership to what I need to have in Australia. And you know, there was that little voice inside that was trying to pull me into a downward spin. But I think for me, I was able to face it. I didn't want to resist it. I was able to face the fear of creating a shift. So whilst the downward spin is there within our subconscious mind, if I can face it, and if I can look at it and say, look, I am consciously choosing not to go that way, then the next time that downward spin comes up, you already faced it, and you know that it's okay to move in the opposite direction. And the more you make a choice to consciously move in the opposite direction and not to take that spiral down, even though you can see it's an option, you know, here it is, it's inviting you to go down, and you go, no, I'm not resisting looking at you. I know you are there, but I choose consciously to look in this direction. Every time you make a conscious choice, it's giving you power. Conscious choice is empowering for the inner self. And so don't deny it, resist it, but just consciously choose. Yeah. Is that
That's
okay?
beautiful. Yeah, that's really beautiful. I like the part where you mentioned that change actually means growth and progress. And I can relate very well with that situation when there's a downfall. It only comes for some growth, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Someone writes here, I've been busy immensely, working very hard routine the past 2 years, which was way too much in the past in 2 months until, is there a continuation? So if you're working so hard and, you know, especially with the times, how would you deal with the change?
I think, you know, sometimes working too hard and having a very busy mind can also be a way of resisting change. It's almost like, yes, there is this much work to do. We all have work to do, but a meditative lifestyle, a spiritual lifestyle requires me to spend a certain amount of time with me. A meditative lifestyle means that I actually realize that work is something that I do, my being, I am something inside me, and that needs attention and care. So too much work, too much doing is often a way of not looking within and giving myself the care and attention I need to be able to go into the doing. So I would recommend creating a balance and finding time every day to spend time with yourself and to check in with the inner being. How are you doing? How are you going? How are you handling life? How are you handling the doing? So you are doing, but you know, what quality is that doing? Because if you don't check in with the being, you will lose energy, and your doing too will not be as productive, as effective, as beautiful. Yeah.
Very interesting. Actually, there's one question here. I think you've answered it, but maybe you want to put in a little bit more light to it. How to recognize a wake-up call? And how would we want to change our thought pattern to embrace it instead of resisting it?
Well, perhaps we need to look deeper beneath the resistance as to why am I resisting the change? I mean, my own personal experience is because of fear. There's fear. I don't want to make a change because of what that might bring. And fear can be based on experiences of the past. It might be because of insecurity. I don't feel like I have anyone out there that I can trust or lean on if I need a bit of extra support. So I think it's really important to look beneath the resistance and ask yourself honestly, really honestly. You don't have to confess to anyone else, but just to be honest with yourself. What is the fear? What is it that is creating the resistance? And then maybe have a nice conversation with somebody you trust about that. Because often when I talk about my fears openly and I express them, and I am with somebody who I have that faith, trust with, then they can actually help me to work through the fear. Many people employ a counselor, a good counselor. Many people can talk to a mentor. But it's very important, even if you have a very good friend, to openly discuss the fear with them. Sometimes when you do that, you yourself are listening to yourself speaking and you find your own answers. But if you keep it all bottled up inside, the resistance doesn't go away. And it's really hard to embrace change. And once you've opened up about it, you will be amazed at how easy it is to come out of that resistance and face the fear.
Yeah, that's so nicely said. And actually, there's a question here. It seems that there will be more wake-up calls now compared to the past times, and looking at the situation right now. So, yeah, but sometimes it's what you said. It takes time to trust and faith to believe in it. How do we face such times and examples, because as what we understand, things will not get any better.
You're absolutely right. Things are not going to get better, I don't think. I mean, the world is definitely, imbalanced. And I mean, this year it's already struck me how much chaos has been created by climate change issues everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So I think the only way that I can create courage to face myself and face change and look forward is actually by looking at my past and realizing how at every moment of change, every step of change, life has supported me somehow. The divine, if you believe in a divine energy, the divine energy has carried me through. And every time you realize that every moment of change created some upheaval inside, but there was also the support system that carried you through it. It might have been a person in your life. It might have been you suddenly got a bonus from work and you had extra finances or resources to help you through. It might have been whatever that carried you through the change. Might have been a sudden inner strength, a burst of inner strength that you got that allowed you to sort of propel yourself forward. It could have been anything. There was support, and there always will be support, because that pattern of support will always stay in your life. You are fortunate, you are lucky, you are incredibly powerful to invoke positivity when you go through moments of change. So keep looking at the past and appreciate those moments of support and know that they will always be there to help you through the future.
This is more of a comment here. Until a few of my friends made me realize, they said that my friends made me realize that it was time to change. So it's more of an affirmation, it's not a question. But there's another question. You mentioned about dreams. Do dreams actually give us clues of something? Or do they just have a random,
Well, I'm not a dream expert. I've never done a PhD in what dreams mean. I can tell you from my own experience that a lot of my dreams are based on unresolved things in my subconscious mind. So if I've had some things pop up in the day and I've not processed them before I go to sleep, they come up in my dreams. And they will pull with them layers that are even below them of other unresolved things. So when I wake up and I can remember a dream and it hasn't been very pleasant, it's got some strange things in it, I ask myself, now, what's unresolved here and what's unresolved there and what's unresolved there? Is there anything that I need to rethink through? Is there anything that I need to process to come to a place of peace? And often there is, and sometimes there isn't. But if you do remember your dreams and they're a little bit sort of strange, then it's worth just looking at the things that have come up, the memories or the stories that come up, and ask yourself, is there anything I need to resolve? That's just my own experience from a meditator, not a dream expert.
Yeah, that's nice. And it says here, what do you do when you know that the change is negative for you? You already are aware of it.
Yeah. I don't think any change is in the long term negative. Short term, it might feel like it's going to bring some turbulence into your life. So when you see that turbulence, it feels like you're going to go through a negative patch. But any turbulence means that you will actually grow, you will invoke change. You will actually bring out more energy, more resilience, more wisdom from within you to handle it, which means in the long term, there will be a positive effect. So when I was on the flight from Melbourne to Abu Dhabi, the pilot told us well in advance that when we leave Melbourne in an hour's time, for the first hour, there will be turbulence. 8 hours into the flight, there will be turbulence. And just before we land, there will be turbulence. So we were very aware. I mean, I heard the message. And so I knew that there would be turbulence. But turbulence doesn't mean the plane stops. It means that it keeps going. You just have to be prepared to go through whatever, up and down happens in here. So turbulence doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to go backwards. Negativity doesn't mean you're going backwards. It just means that you are actually growing within, and you will push through and you will progress further.
So your response to that was negative would not be negative for a long time.
No, not a long time.
Because they think it's negative, but eventually it would have a positive outcome at the end. That's what makes me understand. So yeah, a question here is, as a mother, okay, how to cope with this wake-up call, almost free to do anything because my children are independent and not staying with me anymore.
Yes, I guess we all go through these, big life changes, don't we? Where, there's changes in our family structure. For some people, their children leave the house and move away, and you're left with a vacuum, a void. For some people, parents move on, they pass on in life, and that can create a vacuum and a void. Sometimes we get divorced, we separate from partners, or partners move away for work reasons, and there's a vacuum in my life. Sometimes you have a role at work, your job gets taken away from you, that can create a vacuum or a void. So I guess life is actually inviting you to do something different, something new. And maybe it's time for you to ask yourself, now that I have the space and the time, what would I like to do? Would you like to perhaps go back to some study that you didn't do in your childhood, your youth? Would you like to take up a hobby? Would you like to do some volunteer work or paid work? It's time to actually move into doing something different from what you were doing. So obviously life is creating a wake-up call, inviting you into a place of change. And if I was in your place, I would be welcoming that change with open arms, because you've been a mum and you've probably been a very good mother. And it's time for you to now spend time doing what you'd like to do outside of being a mother. So ask yourself, if you have financial needs, you can work. If not, why don't you take up a very unique hobby, something that you perhaps would like to do to enrich your spirit? Why not? Yeah, Dimple, I actually have a personal question that's come to me. It's a direct question. Do you mind if I read it out?
Yes, please, go ahead. In fact, there's no more questions here.
Okay, so someone is saying, I know I have a wake-up call, but I'm trying to heal the pain. before I can do what I need to. Is that something right? Can I do both simultaneously? Well, possibly the wake-up call is actually very connected to the pain that you're trying to heal. Many times in our life, we have wake-up calls that actually point us in the direction of healing that pain. The call is pulling us here. The pain that needs to be addressed is here. And the fact that I know I have to heal this pain is because the wake-up call is pushing me out of my comfort zone, my relationship with the pain. So I can stay in this relationship with my pain and tell myself that the wake-up call is something separate. But I really believe that the wake-up call is connected with the pain. I think you will find that you will probably be dealing with both simultaneously. I don't think you can just heal pain and then say, I will then heed to the wake-up call. Many times, pain in our life and facing the pain is our wake-up call. And when I turn on deal with the pain, and I look at what is causing the pain, because to be honest with you, anything that is painful in my life comes hand in hand with resistance. If I'm not resisting anything in life, then there is no pain. Pain means I'm resisting change. And so dealing with that resistance and that pain is probably going to actually go hand in hand with looking at that wake-up call and moving into another shift in your life. So I would just say, try to see the connection between the pain and handling the pain, managing the pain, and the wake-up call that's coming. See how the two are connected.
I like the way you say pain means I'm resisting change. That is so meaningful, actually. And there's a question here that just came in. I deal with change by surrendering to reality, and I set a new routine with complete acceptance and positivity, even if I felt tired at the beginning. Now, is this a good or bad thing?
Yeah, good one, good question. So yes, reality of life. You know, the reality of life tells me this is what's happening. And the reality of life is something that I can't ignore. Somehow that reality of life is, in a way, a wake-up call. So when life creates a new reality, which means another word for that is change, isn't it? So there's this reality and there's that reality. So I surrender to a new reality, which means I embrace change. I accept the change. Yes, sometimes it can create tiredness. It can create fear. It can create resistance. And that's normal. I think we have to be honest with ourselves that these emotions are quite normal. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing to feel that tiredness and then to move into a form of positivity, acceptance. And in a way you'll notice how you are being upgraded by just accepting the new reality, stepping into the new reality. There is no other way, really, because you can't live in an old reality. The present moment is the new reality. You can keep resisting it and saying, I'm not going to go there. Reality is, it's facing you. and you have to move into it. You have to step into it. So it's good. It's good to surrender to the new reality and then to see it as the wake-up call and to ask yourself, how can I embrace it? What change do I need to bring within me? What courage, what faith, what trust do I need to grow? And step in.
Yeah, I actually don't see any more questions. I think you've made things really clear. If anyone has any more questions, can type it in so we can answer. And if I've left out any questions, and it would be nice to repost it so that we could ask or address the question again. And a lot of people, they're saying thank you. And I think they really like, they say the explanation is very clear, makes things so much easier. And yeah, so they have got, very well explained. So these are all the comments that's coming in, positive responses. And yeah, I like the way you say that little by little, we have to accept reality. We have to accept change and face it. Now, there is a question that just came in. How to keep a constant positive mind on a negative situation? I think this question was asked before I skipped it out or missed it. So to keep constantly positive.
Yeah. So it's almost like an overarching umbrella question, isn't it? It's a good one, positivity and negativity. So I think, we all have also a habit of seeing a situation as negative. Because what makes any situation positive or negative? What is it? It's my viewpoint, isn't it? Situation is situation, but I label it as positive or negative. So here I am, I can put my glasses on, and depending on the lens of the glasses, that's what I see. If the lenses are green, I see green. If the lenses are red, I see red. But what I'm seeing remains the same. So I might feel like the situation is negative, but do me a little favor, okay? I don't know if you have a pair of reading glasses or sunglasses. Whenever you feel a situation is negative, I want you to remember this moment. And I want you to take those glasses and put them on. And tell yourself, these are glasses of positivity. How can I see this situation from a positive perspective? I know it sounds like a child's game, but it's such a switch of consciousness. I go from looking at things from this consciousness to looking at things from this consciousness. It's like a quick upgrade. Seriously. It's a circuit breaker. Why do I say it's a circuit breaker? It breaks the circuit of my negative thoughts in a minute, in a flash. So every time you label any situation as negative, I want you to just play this game with yourself. Take a pair of glasses, sunglasses, any glasses, reading glasses, put them on. And as you put them on, tell yourself, I'm now putting on glasses of positivity. See the same situation. See what happens to your mindset. I do this. Look, I've been meditating for 30 plus years. I still do these games because I know how easily the mind can slip into seeing things as negative, seeing people as negative. Oh, this person is so bad. How can they be like that? Rather than put on those glasses and say, what's positive in them? What's good in them? And honestly, one of my favorite mantras, my favorite affirmations that I use almost in every class that I give these days is wherever there is criticism or negative viewpoint, it means there's a lack of understanding. Where there is understanding, there can be no criticism, no negativity. And so I always ask myself when I have that feeling that this is negative or this person is negative, how can you understand this? How can you see it differently? Put on those positive glasses and break the circuit.
So really positive and negative. It's for us to decide. It's a mindset. It's not, it's not something that cannot be dealt with, right?
That's right.
And
just requires a switch, change, click.
So beautiful. And someone also said here that so acceptance is necessary. And yeah, I went like, yeah, this is really so true. Acceptance is the key. So much. Thank you so much for such a wonderful explanation. And sister, I think we need to experience this meditation. And it is such a wonderful, the mindset, how you make things positive, negative. Are negative situations really negative? A question to ask ourselves. Or is there a positivity behind every negative situation? This is what I see and what I understand from talking to you. So much of wisdom, so much of, difference in how we see things. So sister, I think, yep, we got a brilliant thumbs up from so many people are giving good comments and they really like the explanation.
Dimple, I have one more question that's come to me.
Yes, please.
Mind if I take that up?
Yes, please.
So if one is with a person who feels it's right to be unhappy, and it's right to feel the unhappiness of a childhood trauma, how can one help to sound the wake-up call that there is a choice to be happy? I think, on a spiritual journey, on the course of spiritual awakening, which is what these 3 sessions are about, awakening to my own inner joy, inner power, is the greatest awakening that I can ever have. Because I have the power to be happy at any moment. So obviously those who are on the call, we're here because we believe this and we've experienced it. And that's the way we're going. Whenever anyone wants to kind of drown themselves in unhappiness and they come to me, I tell them that you can hold unhappiness from the past for as long as you want. It's your choice. The minute you choose to drop it, the unhappiness is over. But you're making a choice to hold it. And you know that story. I mean, it's one of my favorite stories because perhaps it's something I tell myself. There was this story about a Buddhist monk. Many of you would know the story, I'm sure, but tell the person who's holding their unhappiness the story and see what they say. So there's a story of a Buddhist monk. He was a very wise monk and he was with his little disciple. And they were walking down the street in Bangkok. And they see a very beautiful woman on the side of the road trying to cross the road. And every time she put her foot down, busy streets of Bangkok, either a cycle or a car or something would whiz past her. Now, this beautiful woman was blind. So every time she heard those sounds, she would come back to the pavement because she couldn't cross the road. So the elderly monk, he walked across, picked her up in his arms, and he took her across the road and placed her down. And the little disciple next to him was watching all of this, thinking, oh my God, this elderly monk who everyone has respect and regard for, he went and touched this woman. And in their system, they were not allowed to do this, you see. And so the little monk, he thinks about what happens all day. And he thinks about it all week. And he thinks about it all month. And at the end of 3 years, this poor little monk, the disciple, he goes to the elderly monk and he says, listen, I quit. I'm leaving. I can't stay here anymore. And the wise old monk looks at him and says, really? Why? And the little disciple says, remember that day, what you did? You picked up that pretty, beautiful girl and took her across the road, You held her in your hands for about 30 seconds and then you put her down on the other side of the road. How could you have done such a thing? And the wise old monk said, okay, I made a mistake 3 years ago. I picked up the lady and I put her down. But how many times have you held her in your mind? How many times have you picked her up in the last 3 years? How many times have you remembered that incident and felt the same unhappiness? So who made a greater mistake, me or you? And every time I remember something that's happened to me, anything negative, I remind myself of that story. When are you going to put the story down? When are you going to choose to create happiness, joy in this moment now? When are you going to live in the present? When are you going to learn the lesson of what happened? Take the learning into this moment and let it go. Forgive and forget. It's a choice. So I hope that answers your question.
Sister, you have actually given a wonderful introduction to your episode 2. And I think they should come for this because there's going to be so much more. The science of happiness that comes after the wake-up call. It is so beautifully explained. And I think you even did a wonderful opening with that story. So they should stay tuned and come to hear more. And the science of happiness is the next episode, which will be so wonderful, I believe, after this. And with that, Sister Sona, we would like to thank you so much for such an inspiring talk. And, it was a very overwhelming participants and audience, and I'm sure they would have taken back a lot from us today. And what we would like to do is, would you be able to guide us through a meditation process and let us feel that power through you?
Sure. Let's just do a few moments of reflection or meditation together and create an energy that allows us to embrace that wake-up call. So just sit comfortably wherever you are, in your chair or on a mat. And bring your mind to the current moment, to the present. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. And ask yourself, when life brings the next wake-up call, how do I want to react? How do I want to respond? Do I want to respond out of fear, insecurity, past feelings, past issues, the effect of past memories? Or can I choose to have courage, to have faith and trust that everything will be okay? The fact that I'm here today, that I've been supported through life, means that everything has been okay. Can I honor that journey and have the courage to know that everything will continue to be okay? Can I put on those glasses of positivity and face the wake-up call? Can I look into the future, past that wake-up call? With a sense of deep knowing. That beyond any turbulence that change always brings, there is only growth. And that spiritual awakening is a process. Of moving forward in life, of learning and growing. Nothing ever stays the same. So let me accept every change. Along the journey of my life. Let me answer every wake-up call with positivity and hope. So bring your mind now back to the present moment and think about your current life. Think about the changes that life is pulling you towards. And let go of any fear, any negativity. And know that no matter what happens, you will be guided, you will be supported. And the wake-up call will only be for the best. It's time for new awareness, new consciousness. A more awakened being. Thank you.
Thank you. We all experience that, and I think we have more to come. So just to remind all of our episode 2, The Science of Happiness, and episode 3, Flying Free. You can look up at the screen. Episode 2 is on 26th, on Saturday, 26th August, 4:30, same time. And episode 3, Flying Free, 9th September on Saturday as well. 4:30 is Malaysian time and 6:30 is Australian time. So looking at where we are right now, there's so much to look forward to. And I would love to thank Sister Sona for such a wonderful experience. And without all you audience, this would not be possible. So thank you all for sharing your time with us this lovely evening. And it would be nice to have your cameras turned on so that we could all see you before we say goodbye till the next episode. So please switch on your camera. We would love to see your lovely faces. I'm sure Sister Sona would like to see all of you. Yes. I think we have currently 51. We had 55 or maybe more participants joined us today. And yes, lovely faces. And it's so nice to be meet again. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.